This is episode 11 of the J.O.B. podcast. And today, the title is Divorce, Picking Up the Pieces. I'm Dave Ford.
And I'm Ty Steele.
Guys, I want to thank you for coming back. Thank you for your support after episode 10. The anniversary of Hurricane Michael show was, I think, a great success. And I think we're both confident that we helped a lot of you out there on that day. I know that we definitely helped each other. I've listened to it a couple times on the iTunes version just to rehash what we talked about, to just get some further closure on it. Our show today is out of the genesis of Ty over here. He was telling me earlier in the week, when I asked him, I always ask him, okay, what kind of hot ideas do you have? And he said, well, divorce. And I was like, wow, that's just like a punch right to your chin. And I said, well, what made you come up with that? He said, well, my 19-year-old daughter brought it up to me, and she said that we had never talked about it. So, floor is yours, man. Go ahead and tell us how that went and what that did, how that affected you.
Usually, I always have great conversations with my kiddos, and this particular day, Taja, who's my baby girl that's in college right now in South Carolina, she hit me up and was like, Dad, I want to ask you something personal, and I don't want you to get offended and yell like I'm the dad. I was like, nah, just ask me whatever you got going on. I'm cool with talking with. But she proceeded to tell me that when me and her mom got a divorce, we never spoke to her about it and sat down and had a conversation with her at all.
Yeah.
It was just, Dad is leaving, you'll go see your dad during the summer. And that was mainly just the gist of our conversation. And she got to telling me some things about how it affected her and stuff she didn't know happened or what went on, but I've never defended myself.
Okay.
And I always seem to let her mom win in that case because I didn't want to say anything negative towards her mom. So basically, whatever mom said about me, I just allowed it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But as she got older, she always wondered like what happened. And it's usually when you get divorced, you can say that person's crazy. I can't deal with it no more. And that's it. And me, I never wanted to be the guy to talk bad about a kid's mom or anything like that. So I just let her mom say what she said basically, and I never really gave her any insight to why we went through that divorce. And it really bothered her that I never defended myself or said anything about it. I think you probably should sit your kids down and talk about those scenarios.
Yeah. But
I didn't sit them down at all. It was just, okay, y'all gonna stay in Virginia and I'm moving back to Panama City. And Daddy will get y'all during the summer. And that was basically it. And I was always taught, that kids gotta stay in kids' place. You just don't talk to them about adult things.
Right.
So it never crossed my mind to even say anything about it or that scenario, so I just allowed it to happen. And talking to her, it bothered me because she was bothered.
Yeah.
I was like, man, what? Hey, I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know that was on your mind. So now I'm at a place now where I sat down and actually talked to her about some things that went on during the divorce and what led up to the divorce. And it doesn't mean that I love you any less or anything, but you have two people who couldn't get along no matter what we tried to do.
Yeah.
And it was just time for us to end it. Because whether we know it or not, our kids, I feel like, pick up on things. So there's a bad vibe in the house, our kids know immediately. Mm-hmm. And we were living in a household where it was a lot of bad things going on in the household. And I was like, all right, it's time to exit. It's time to exit. But we don't think about when we in relationships how it affects the kids and what the kids' feelings are. Because a lot of times when you're in a relationship, it's just between you. I would say it's between you and that other person.
Right.
We don't think about the new family members we got, the nieces and nephews, the mother-in-law. We don't think about them. We just say, all right, we can't get along anymore. And, divorce is it. And our kids are forced to pick a side. And that's what my scenario was. My kids were forced to pick a side, and it's like we're going to rage war on Daddy because Daddy's not here anymore. Right. They don't know what actually went on for Dad to not be there.
Well, Gosh, so to unpack divorce as a whole and everything you just said, it's almost like what section or sections do we actually talk about? Because divorce is such a complicated thing in our society. For years, for decades, for generations, it was taboo. It was like, once you get married, you're in for the duration.
Yeah, exactly.
And that has definitely run its course.
Yeah, sure.
And times have changed. And I had made a promise to myself. I've been through 3 divorces. I've been through one as a young child at 7.5. Mm-hmm. I went through one as an adult at 27 after my dad remarried through my stepmom. And then I went through my own.
Oh, yeah.
And they all affected me differently.
Yeah.
And I've been damaged by all 3.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it really has an effect on your romantic, intimate, intellectual relationships that moving forward. And I guess the reason that we agreed on calling this Picking Up the Pieces is, so if I ask you to do the pieces ever get all picked up, what do you say?
I don't see the pieces being all picked up as always. I think, we get older. We get wiser, our kids get older, and they know what it's like over dad's house, and they know what it's like over mom's house. And I think we all just grow from that. But eventually, there's a turnaround. My main problem was, it wasn't my problem. It actually became her problem. But I began to be happy again. I was beyond happy in my life. Happy where I was at. Yeah. Happy with the people I was dealing with. It became a good thing for me. But it wasn't a good thing for their mom. And, a lot of times when you are divorcing a person, you're going through a divorce, you're happy or sad. You can't figure out why they are so sad or why they're so jacked up. Yeah. And you're happy. So then your happiness causes more issues. Well, I'm not going to let you see the kids. Or, well, I'm not going to do this. And I had to learn to be silent about a lot of things that was going on in my life. I was like, you can't say everything. You can't show every emotion. You can't talk about what you're happy. Because, it put my kids in an odd situation because where they were coming just to visit me, they were actually having to be spies for their mom, which is the craziest thing ever. Yep. And it makes more turmoil in the relationships that you're trying to have with people now. So it's a tricky case when it comes to picking up those pieces. But I definitely think it's something at one point in your life that you got to talk about with your kids. And I felt like I failed my daughter. I failed her because I hadn't talked to her about those things. Oh, I definitely failed my kids because I think as adults, it's not an excuse. I think we just want to leave the things unsaid. Mm-hmm. We want to just put them in the closet, and we want to move forward. And it's like you said, it complicates because when you start feeling happy, you deserve to be happy. Oh yeah, definitely. You have that right to be happy, but then you understand the other side is struggling. And I guess if you're truly a good person, which I know that you are, you might feel a little bit guilty that you were feeling better. Oh yeah. Because obviously your original intent was not to end up where you did. Yeah. Now, the other side of divorce is that it can open up so many great things for you in the second half of your life. Exactly. Both of us have been so fortunate and blessed that's the case. Oh yeah. We get from our current spouses what we always wanted and needed before. Mm-hmm. We're lucky. I think we're in the minority when it comes to that. If I had to do research, I think we're in the minority on that. Oh yeah. Because the statistics don't favor marriage in America. It's a 50% divorce rate in America right now. Those are terrible, terrible odds. I remember even back in 2002 when I was interning in Jacksonville, listening to a radio station. One of those lawyer commercials came up. Mm-hmm. The divorce rate in Jacksonville is 70%. Yes. Dude, 7 out of 10 back in 2002. Mm-hmm. And that floored me. So I guess the good news is, at least not based in Jacksonville, at least the divorce rate decreased based on the U.S. statistics. But if you look back in 2010, right here in Panama City, this was #1 in the nation in divorce. Did you know that? Oh, yeah, Florida's always #1. That's insane. Yeah, Florida has a dark cloud hanging over it. If your marriage just survived in Florida, you want the wrong.com. That should have been our website. I'm just saying. I I got a shout out from Ray. Ray has said he's made a great point. He says, to this day, my son doesn't want a relationship with me because I chose to marry. Even though his mother left me for someone, once I was happy, I was the worst person in the world, and it still affects my son.
Mm.
So because, he chose a divorce lady, and now, he decided to move on, his son feels like he's the worst person in the world. And the thing is, we don't have those conversations with our kids.
Right.
So our kids feel like they have to choose a side. I have to be on my mom's side because I stay with my mom, or I'm with my dad right now, so I'm be on my dad's side. We put our kids in the worst case scenario when it comes to divorce, or even just moving on from another relationship. You get in a new relationship, and that you're all happy, and you got this going on and that going on. It's like there's a neglect there when it comes to the kids. We tell our kids, hey, here's your new stepdad. That's it. And you hadn't even recovered from the last relationship. So a lot of people feel like the fastest way to get over a relationship is to hop into another one.
Right.
And there needs to be a healing process. You are healed, but are your children healed? You are straight, but is your family straight? So those are some different things we got to look at when it comes to picking up those pieces.
Well, and I guess we could talk about the fallout to the children the entire show.
Yeah.
Because I've already said that as a child, I still carry things with me that I was affected by at 7.5.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess that's the really tragic part for me and for a lot of people is the fact that you really never stop paying for what happened to you and it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
And the fault thing is something that kids point to the very first thing. That was something else I looked up. And even as a kid, I asked myself, is this my fault that my dad left?
Mm-hmm.
And that just sucks. There's a more educated word out there to say, but that was one of those things I really have those memories burned into my brain. Mm-hmm. And then when it happened again, when I was grown,
mm-hmm.
I remember my legs buckled when I heard over the phone that my dad and my stepmom were divorcing. Yeah. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then again, so I was still in my marriage at that point, but then mine failed just a few years after that.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those things where metaphorically, when you think about pieces, it's like a trail of getting your life back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just your life, it's your former partner's life. And then if you had kids, it's their life.
Exactly.
And it just goes on and on and on. And that's a very, very difficult animal to try to tame. But isn't that the joke? You really never do.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you have those conversations with your kids, like Taji's on here talking to me now, she said, when you feel like it's the right time to tell a child about a divorce, this is my child.
Yeah.
How do you go about addressing it, especially if they are younger? You definitely can't talk about those things when you were younger. I think Taji, for example, was like 5 years old. So it's kind of hard for me to sit a 5-year-old down and say, hey, this is what it is. Because in her young mind, mom and dad are going to get back together and they're going to live in a household together.
Right.
And, that in a kid's mind, it's supposed to happen, or it's what they want to happen, and it doesn't happen. So I think later on down the line, once you start to remarry or you start to date, it's a good thing to sit down and talk to your kids about those things, because you're bringing in another woman that's possibly their mother figure, and you hadn't had a conversation that you needed to have, and that messes it up when it comes to blended families. So you got to be able to sit down and talk to your kids. But I think talking to like a 5-year-old at my particular time was not the right thing to do. She probably seen a lot of stuff that she shouldn't have seen already.
Yeah.
But I'm talking in best case scenario.
Yeah.
The thing is, you are divorcing a person for a reason.
Right.
There's some issues going on. There's some situations going on. So that person may not be on the same page with you when it comes to raising kids.
Sure.
So, as a father, I stayed silent and I allowed myself to be bashed because, me and my mother's relationship wasn't the best relationship growing up. So
right.
I have so much respect for women when it comes to being a mom that I would never try to tear down another mom. And in some cases, these moms, they destroy themselves, but I just couldn't be the one to do it. So my silence, it seemed like it was weakness at the time, but I was really trying to protect my kids. I was trying to protect their young minds because I knew that 300 days out the year they're going to be with mom, and another 60 days out the year they're going to be with dad. So I was trying to protect their young minds, and I just didn't do a good job of doing that. I should have had those conversations earlier.
Well, I guess in all fairness, you can't be too tough on yourself, though, dude. Because you have hindsight. That's a benefit we all have. But when you're in the moment, there's no manual for that.
Oh, yeah.
People say, go to marriage counseling. Okay, well, you can try that. And a lot of people try it. Are your odds good coming out of that? No, they're not. They're really low. I don't have them in front of me, but I don't know anybody that went to marriage counseling and came out with their marriage intact.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you're leaving that person behind for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't understand why some people, they'll get divorced and they'll remarry each other.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah, listen, I'm not doing no comebacks now. We divorced for a reason.
Yeah.
It was for a reason.
Yes. I mean, what makes you think that it's going to work the second time? And that was something else I read, that even on a second attempt in marriages, not to the same person, but if you get divorced and then you remarry, your odds are even lower than your first.
Yeah.
So your odds are highest on your first attempt.
Oh, yeah. And then I got on here, Hope, you're definitely right. Hope says divorce is like a death, and it takes time for individuals to heal and our kids as well. Bridget also says, I've been on both ends of the spectrum, and I found that my boys have been more forgiving than our girls. Boys definitely forgive. And then Taja says, she said, I think you've done a good job of not belittling mom either. Since the divorce, like in my opinion, I feel like you never tried to portray her harshly to us, and for that I am grateful and also have respect for it. So I tried to do the best that I could when I was raising them. Like I said, my character took a lot of hits on that. And I allowed my character to take those hits because I always wanted them to respect their mom, love their mom. Their girls, they're different, gonna need that mother guidance.
Right.
And when they come see me, they're like, why is everything so different from what mom says about you? Why are you like this? Why are you in the church? And why are you not fussing? I'm like, listen, I just want to raise you guys correctly. I knew in that household, I couldn't raise you guys correctly. There was always talk like, well, dang, you're doing everything now that you not away from their mother. And I was like, the mom would never allow me to be the man that God called me to be.
Right.
And the thing was, and I explained to my girls later on, she had got out of a relationship, and a few years later, she married me. And she never healed from that relationship. So the thing is, when you don't heal from stuff and then you try to bring it into another relationship, you're bringing the same sickness, that same disease into that relationship. It's a reason why people that are infested with something have masks on. They're not trying to spread those germs.
Right.
You imagine going into a new relationship now and you're spreading those germs that you had from your last relationship into your new. People have got to learn to heal before they hop into those different situations. And divorce is, like Hope said, one of those things. Divorce is it's like death. A part of you has died. And it takes a while for you to get back to where you're supposed to be. And some people never heal from it. Some people never come back. Some people never remarry again. They're just there.
They go out of
whack.
Yeah.
And so we've got to have those conversations when we talk about divorce. Florida does this interesting thing. You have to go through divorce counseling if you got kids before you divorce. So you're sitting there with the person you probably hate now, and you're trying to have a counseling session, which I just don't think it works.
It doesn't. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I've got 2 points I want to talk about. But yeah, it's like you said, in the state of Florida, it's very difficult to get out of the marriage, yet it is so easy to get into it.
Oh yeah.
You just got to show up, sign your name, pay the freight, and boom, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Why aren't we going through more steps to get into the marriage to make sure you're doing the right thing? That's my question.
Exactly.
The other point that I wanted to make, let's talk about co-parenting. So in my current space, I'm trying to.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. In my current space right now, I am trying to really become a better man.
Mm-hmm.
I am guilty of being too truthful with my kids.
Yeah.
Whereas you took the high road, I did not. I took the justice road.
Yeah.
I said, look, I pretty much did, hey, this ain't on me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do this. because that's just, I guess I'm wired like that.
Yeah.
I believe in justice. I am a realist. I am an idealist. And if I didn't cause the problem, then I'll be darned if I'm going to go down with the ship. You know what I mean? So failure is not an option for me. I don't quit anything.
Yeah.
And that goes back to that childhood promise. Dave, as an adult, if you get married, you're never going to get divorced because divorce is failure. That's quitting.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to really go, I'm like, am I quitting? Am I failing? How do I classify this so I can let myself off the hook?
Mm-hmm.
But the co-parenting thing right now is a big jump because I've tried to put my best foot forward several times, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
The trust factor has been broken a long time ago. And like you said, when somebody gets out of our circle because it's already a dot, you ain't getting back in.
Definitely not getting back in.
So it's not about trusting, it's about communication.
Yeah.
Which is the number one thing that people fail at and why they get divorced. Because you and I communicate great, but we don't spend a lot of time together. You should be communicating the best with your partner. There should be no secrets. Everything should be out on the table, and you shouldn't fall asleep at night needing to say something and then waiting on it, maybe forgetting about it. And that's that communication aspect. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's something that you need to do right in your marriage, but even if you failed in it and you're trying to co-parent, you still got a chance to get that part right so you can raise your kids.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like, I tell people, when I have to marriage counsel people, I tell them all the time, like, listen, everything has to be communicated and everything has to be compromised. I mean, you have to say this is rules to this. So there should be rules to arguments. So if we're going to argue, in my mind, okay, I'm not going to ever say this.
The file cabinet, right? We talked about that.
You can't go into that. So if I told you something in private, if I told you something that like, hey, that really hurt me, the last thing I want you to bring up when we arguing is the thing that I told you most that hurt me. And a lot of people don't play fair when it comes to arguing. You think about it. You love this person.
Right.
Why would you say something you know that's going to kill and damage them just because you are mad at that particular time?
Right.
And 5 minutes later down the road, you're like, hey, what was I doing? What was I thinking? I think it has to be rules to argue. Now, everybody has their limits. You can't just keep picking at a scab, and expect that scab to never bleed. But you have to have those conversations before you get into relationships. A lot of people like what they see. Oh, this person is great to me, they look good, and blah, blah, blah. But they don't have those conversations. In my dating world, I could have talked to some beautiful women. But the thing is, I couldn't hold a good conversation with them because they just couldn't conversate like that.
Right.
One day, we're not going to look as good as we used to look. I need to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you. I mean, it drives me insane. But people don't think about that before they get married. When you get a marriage license, they offer you a discount if you take marriage counseling class.
Mm-hmm.
People take those classes with someone they know, probably their pastor at their church, or somebody that's probably going to charge them a little money just so they can get money taken off of their marriage license.
Yeah.
And we invest so much time and money into weddings. I'm going to have this perfect color. My hair's going to look good.
It's a big show.
This person's going to be cool. This person that this family member can't sit here. They got to be at this table so we can all be seen. But we don't invest in our marriages like that.
It's a great
we don't
point.
invest in our children like that. The wedding has so much investment, but it takes so much more after the wedding to stay together.
Just work.
I mean, you are part of a microwave generation. Like, as soon as it heats up, I want it to heat up right now.
Yeah.
It's too cold. I'm trying to press the button to heat it up. It takes time to make it heat up again. And if you're not willing to sit there and do those things with a person, you shouldn't hop into those marriages. You shouldn't hop into those relationships. And then if you decide to lay down and have sex with somebody, you got to say, can I see myself having kids with this woman?
Right.
And she has to ask herself the same thing. If you know he's terrible right now, what makes you think he's going to be a good father down the line? Or if he's not taking care of his kids right now,
what makes you think it's going to change?
Yeah, what makes you think that's going to change? I mean, great men are not made overnight. I didn't become who I am overnight.
Pain.
No matter how good you look and how perfect you are, you can't change a man. I said in the dictionary says one cannot change themselves. God has to change them. There has to be something that goes on in their life that focuses them to change. But the right man find the right woman, he'll change instantly. You'll be like, look, Joe, how come you wasn't like that when I was with her? You wasn't her.
Exactly.
She changed me automatically.
Exactly.
So many people are in relationships where they're just focusing on changing people, and that is it. And they can't have a great relationship because you're too worried about trying to change that person.
Right. Got a great question here from Tanya Holloway. She says, do you feel it's okay for the, quote, absent parent to be inconsistently involved in the child's life, or give them an ultimatum to be there consistently or none at all? It's a great question. Been there. Been in the throes of that one, and I don't know if I handled it the best way. I probably didn't. And again, you're in survival mode in a lot of these things. I was in a situation for 3 years where I was the only parent. And in the end, I made the decision to let the mother come back in their life after she had been in rehab multiple times. Everybody and their brother told me that I was a fool. Everybody said, you need to take the kids and go. And I said, I understand why you say that. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, but for me, I need to give my kids the opportunity to be in their kids, in their mom's life if they want to. I don't want to be the one that takes that from them because I can see that biting me later. Them saying, why didn't you give mom a chance with us? Exactly. You shouldn't have taken us. I don't know if that helped answer that. I don't even know if there's a really foolproof answer to that.
Listen, being a step parent in both marriages that I'm still in one, and the other one that I was in, like being a step parent, it's like you call them Disneyland daddies. They show up and they're like, I'm gonna take you to Disney World, and then the kid is excited and happy and everything, and then they have to come back home and be with the person that's really raising them, the person that's there when they're sick, that pays for everything because absentee doesn't do anything. And I think that's what she's more along the lines is touching. They're like, what do you do when a person's constantly being absent? You have to allow that child to see for themselves. So that's why I never said how bad my ex was to my kids. I'm like, my kids got to see this for themselves. Yeah. Even though she's pushing that I'm the worst person in the world on them, I have to let them see for themselves. So I stayed out of those. And you raise your kids. You know your kids are going to be smart. They catch on quick. They'll start to see things for themselves. And I've never been that person that felt like I had to go back at somebody. I had to go tit for tat. So I think I get that from my grandmother. We just allow people to do it. Eventually, it's going to come back on you. You was a piece of crap to me, and I still stayed in my character. I still stayed who I was. That's eventually going to come back on you. So, it's definitely one of those things where you have to let your kids see. But if you're taking your kids to an environment that's unhealthy, I would strongly discourage that. I'll fight all day long. Which is why I never fought for custody with my kids, because their mom was a great mom. Regardless of what me and her was going through, she was a great mom to them. Yeah. And I know they had a lot of things with their mom they didn't like, but at the end of the day, I let them figure it out. I said, that's on y'all to figure out. You all going to be with her. But if at her house being so toxic where she was on drugs and this and that, and I knew it was just a bad environment, I would have fought all day from her. But me as a man, I just can't take kids from a woman.
Sorry, I got distracted there for a second. we always have at least one person call us during the show. No, I'm with you. And the thing is, you were definitely better about that than me. Like I said, I want the truth to come out. Yeah. By any means necessary, to take something from Malcolm X there. But by any means necessary, I want the truth and I want justice. And my biggest weakness is anger. Mm-hmm. I go to anger first, like a lot of people. Yeah. And in those moments where I felt wronged, it was, well, dang it, you're going to find out what your mom did. Mm-hmm. And I know that was wrong. I know that was wrong. What the problem was is I almost needed somebody there to jerk me by the neck and say, dude, stop. But I was so in the depths of my anger and despair and depression that I guess fighting for that truth meant more to me than protecting my kids. Mm-hmm. And so guilt is a factor, that you carry around with when divorce is behind you. You carry that guilt, like you said. You could have done some things better. There's all that shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Oh, yeah.
If we didn't have it, then we'd still be in the marriage.
Exactly.
Tanya came back and said, she said, personally, I feel if he's not there consistently, he's doing more harm than good. Not showing up for the weekends, only contacting periodically, etc.
Oh, yeah.
Is not okay with me. I agree with that.
Oh, yeah. She's on that.
Yeah, you got to be in or out.
She's definitely on that.
You got to be all in or out.
And so I will be back in court in a heartbeat, expressing those things to the judge, like, listen, this is hurting my kids more than anything. And that's something that we definitely need to talk about. I know Tanika just asked an interesting question. She said, what are your thoughts about children knowing details about the reason for divorce? Age is a factor, but in my opinion, how much truth can they handle? That's a good question to me. I don't think as a parent it would be in our best interest to talk about every detail.
I agree.
If there were drugs going on, if there was infidelity, if it was those different things going on, everything doesn't need to be told. You just say, listen, we got to a point we got in our life to where we couldn't move further. A lot of times parents are looking for some validation with their kids, so they tend to start telling kids too much.
Yes.
Mama, you can't go out there and just tell a 6-year-old, dad was out with 20 women in town. There's videos posted everywhere, and your dad's doing this. So how are you going to have a sex conversation with your kid when you had to have a sex conversation with your kid? Because they're 5 or 6 years old, you're like, what is he with these women doing?
Right.
And some people are just graphic and they talk about everything. So when there's adult situations going on, I don't think those should be talked about. I don't think they probably should be talked about ever. But I know eventually one day it might come out, it might be said, and you think about it though, what are you doing by telling all of those details? What are you doing? It's already hurting the kid or the children that you guys are breaking up, but then you start to go in detail about every little slimy thing that was done. How does that help?
Well, you bring up a good point, but I'll shoot back with this. As parents now, we're at a disadvantage with the era that we're in with social media. Mm-hmm. Dude, these kids are exposed to so much more at a faster rate than we were by almost 3 times as much.
This is true.
So we're at a gigantic disadvantage. So you talk about not having the sex conversation. Mm-hmm. We don't even know what they've already seen. Because with the internet,
you're right.
The opportunities are endless.
You are definitely right.
And we've talked about that before. You need to know what your kids are looking at, and trust, but trust with limitations, trust with boundaries. It's a very, very complicated road, all these different avenues that we're talking about right now, and again, I want to remind everybody, we're not professionals, and we didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night. So, where again, it's something that's close to us because we've been through it, and everything that we've talked about on the show, we've been through it. There's not one thing that we're ever going to talk about that we haven't been through. Otherwise, we have no business talking about it. Yeah. There's another statistic I wanted to bring up, and it goes directly to everybody here in town, and this is probably going to shock you because it shocked me. As of a March 23rd article that came out this year, so 5 months after Hurricane Michael, the divorce rate actually went down compared to the year before. And the previous year, from 2017 to 2018, from October to February, was 403 dissolutions of marriages, compared to the year after that, post-Hurricane Michael, was 359. Wow. Now, the question is this. We know the court system was shut down for a few weeks. Did that have something to do with it? It probably did.
I'll tell you my little spin on it. I think mainly because we were looking at hurricane stuff on the internet. So many people are Snapchat, Instagram, and they swear that they are in the happiest relationships ever, and that their relationship is so bad that they need to get out of it. A lot of times we're getting a false look at what really going on in people's life. And if we just start to worry about ourselves, things will be better. But when you're trying to keep up with the Joneses or make your marriage or make your relationship look like the next person, you're putting yourself in a bad situation. You know, everybody's not going to be Ty or Dave. They're not going to be us. And your guy is unique in his own special way.
Right.
So you shouldn't look elsewhere because your guy is not doing the things that you thought he should be doing right now. Because at one point, he was unique and wonderful to you. Or the same thing with women, you know. I mean, just because she looks good doesn't mean she cooks. I was having an interesting conversation the other day about marriages being 50-50. And I brought up the interesting thing. I said, you know what? Some marriages, I mean, a lot of marriages are not 50-50. I mean, sometimes it's, I said
70-30, 60-40?
70-30, 60-40. I said even 90-10.
Ooh.
It just depends on what you want to put into your relationship. But when we start looking at stuff by the numbers, I do this and I do that, and what do you do? What do you bring to the table? That's when you start having those conversations about divorce. Because you can't never look at everything that you put into the relationship versus somebody else. If not, we all probably won't be in relationships because there are going to be times where I'm giving 100, and there's going to be times where she's not giving anything. Or there will be times that she's giving 100, and I'm not giving anything. Yeah. If we start to look on those numbers, none of us will be together.
I'm guilty of that. I keep score. I keep score of everything. I know that doesn't surprise you. I'm probably one of the biggest competitors you know. There's not one thing that I do in a given day that I'm not keeping score. I'm always trying to win. But in divorce, it's not about winning. It's about being together.
Yeah.
Debbie brings up a great point. I want to say this. She said co-parenting and discipline is a huge issue if you don't have a good co-parenting relationship. This is something that hits home right in this house. We basically do Groundhog Day around here, where we're the strict household.
Yeah.
We are the disciplinarians. We are the ones that the kids grumble about as they go back to their room. Mm-hmm. We are over their shoulder looking at grades. Now, mind you, we've had to really adjust the way we do things because we were coming off as drill sergeants. We were coming off as, wow, we cannot make you guys happy. Because they're going to the other house, playing endless video games, staying up long hours, falling asleep in class when they're not with us, missing school when they're not with us, on and on and on. And then, because when they leave, we're like, oh, we did a great job this week. It's almost like you would do at your job. You'd have a conference talking about what you did the week before. You'd have a meeting about it, right? What are the things we did right? What are the things we did wrong? Well, that's what we did for a long time. We were like, wow, this is really great. And they come back, and it's like, nothing happened. We got to start over. So that is something as a blended family is maddening.
Oh, yeah.
That it really poisons the ambiance of the house for that week. Because for those first 2, sometimes even 3 days after they come back, smart mouths, bad attitudes, lackadaisical in their behavior. And it's just, you know, that aspect of it, of having the kids with you and then sending them away for the week and then getting them back only to repeat the things over. It's enough to make a really, really smart person go insane.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're like, what's the point then? I'm just going to be like the other household. I'm going to let them do whatever they want.
It's like, what's that, like 51st dates? Is that fair?
Yes.
All right, so you have to reteach.
Yes.
Every time they come back. Tasha brought up a great point. She, like I said, keeping up with the Joneses. She said she tells her kids that we are the Joneses. I always tell my children and my family that how can we keep up with ourselves? So that's a great way to definitely look at that.
Yes.
But it's the co-parenting part is extremely difficult.
Yes, it is.
Because you have a certain way of rules of things that are done in your house. All I can say is you have to be flexible. And it goes back to knowing, I mean, you feel like you know a person before you get married to them or lay down and have sex and do all of those things. But I don't know. pressure bust a pipe, then you start to see who people really are. And my saying is always, if somebody shows you who they really are, believe them. That's them.
Yes.
That's who they really are. But co-parenting is so hard when you have a set of rules and you try to abide by those rules, and then you have to reteach and retrain. And I had to get my daughter when she was 17 from her mom. My daughter had got a little bit beside herself. I'm going to say a lot beside herself. And had I left her in South Carolina, she would have graduated as an 11th grader. But she was 17 years old, and I knew that she wasn't ready. So when she got to Panama City, the first thing I did was enroll her at North Bay Haven. And it was like, she already has 30 credits. She can graduate. I said, no. She needs one more year. Yeah. And in that year of just staying with me, I really feel like that was a life-changing experience for her, because the lectures that I'm giving on this show every Saturday, I gave her every morning before school and after school every afternoon. And I knew in my mind that when she got off of college, she wasn't going to do everything right. And that's when I stopped fussing. That's when I stopped lecturing. I said, you're 18 years old now. What you do counts. You mess up, it's on you.
Yeah.
It's your life. You go out, you get pregnant, you do those things, it's on you. And she was like, Dad, you don't even fuss at me anymore. You call, ask how my day was. I need anything, am I good? And I do those things. Look, she just put on there, you ain't lying. But since she got into college, I don't fuss at her no more. She is an adult, and I said, I'm going to trust you to be an adult. And if you mess up, you know that's on you. I'm going to love you regardless. Because I always told her, I tried to get out. She had a little habit of like telling a lie. And I told her, I said, there's going to be a time when you're going to be in a situation, and all these lies are going to add up. And I need to be able to believe you. Say if the police arrest you and they try to convict you for a crime that you say, and you tell me that without a shadow of a doubt, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in 100 million times for you. But if I know you to be a liar, I can't do that. I'm not gonna put all my money into a pot. I'm like, man, my little lying child. I'm not gonna do those things. So it was her year that she spent with me was just me establishing a relationship with her that I knew was going to be needed for when she went off to college. Because I feel like she trusts me to the T. She can call me and tell me anything, and me and her can definitely talk about it. And number one, they always say if you want to see your personality, look at your kids.
Absolutely.
So I know that a part of the stuff, that little sneaky stuff she do, she get that from me. That was me at her age. But the hustle, the grind, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to achieve no matter what you say about me, that's also for me. That's the side of her that I love. That's the side that I'm trying to motivate.
Right.
The rest of the stuff, we all got to take our growing pains.
I'm glad you brought up the personalities. It's hard to tap into and see what your kids are taking from you from your good qualities. And even if you show them to them over and over and you're a great image for them and you're a great father to them, they still are going to pick up those things from the other side.
Oh, yeah.
And another aspect of the co-parenting is if you're too strict on those kids or that child, they're going to say, I'm just going to go over to mom's.
Yeah, that's what Trina just said.
Yeah.
Trina just said that kids know what they can do at each house.
Well, so you go from when you're in your marriage and supposedly you're parenting together, you're in a united front.
Yeah.
You have the leverage.
Oh, yeah.
When you get divorced, you lose the leverage.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to make your kids feel comfortable, stop them from crying, stop them from being stressed and angry all the time. So you tend to ease back and you spoil them.
Yep.
And you give them too much. Mm-hmm. Then they get used to it.
Yep.
And then they say, oh, so I can get away with this and this and this at dad's, and I can't get away with the same things over at mom's.
Oh, yeah.
And they push and they push.
Mm-hmm.
And then they try to come to you with that threat.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember one of the parents, she had an issue with in basketball. I can't say their name, but he was in competition with his
yes.
He was in competition with the other parent. So the one parent bought a phone, the next parent go buy him another phone. That's a series up from that.
Yes.
It was always a competition thing, or if this one parent fusses, the other parent's going to say totally opposite of what that parent is saying.
Yes.
There's got to be rules when it comes to raising our children. And if you love your kids at the end of the day, regardless of how you feel about me, we should get on one chord. We should be on one page. And so there has to be a communication line there. I said, you just can't go off and call her stupid, and then you have to be able to
think the toughest part for me out of everything that we've talked about so far, and even learning it organically on a day-to-day basis, is how after the divorce, when you're co-parenting with somebody else, I think the biggest and most important thing to me is trying to show that child or those children that their life doesn't have to turn out the same way. That marriage can be happy, it can be healthy, it can be fulfilling, it can be blessed, but you can't make them see that. And I know that what we do here is we try to show that everybody gets a second chance, or that sometimes you get a second chance. And what are you going to do with that second chance? And because like you said, kids pick up on things. They're very observant, and they're like parrots. And they're going to copy a lot of the things that they see, depending on what age. Because we haven't even talked about different age groups that happen through divorce.
I know. Tasha said she had removed her daughter from the negative environment that she was in. She graduated from Bay High, and now she's a freshman at Clark University. And with God, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, listen, I got my daughter out of her situation, and she's finished her freshman year at USC Aiken in South Carolina. So I am definitely proud of her. I wish she could have stayed with her mom forever, but I tell women all the time, I tell men the same thing. Do not be your kid's friend. They have so many of those.
Yeah.
And they're going to have so many of those in their life. I mean, listen, with my kids now, I love all my babies to death, to life, I shall say. And, but I'm not their friend.
No.
I'm not their friend. Now, can they come to me? Yes. Are they going to talk to me about everything? No. They're not going to talk to me about everything. There's some things that should be discussed amongst women, but when it comes to life situations, life decisions, they're going to come to me and say, hey, Dad, what do you think about this? Or what's your opinion about that? And even in their relationship sometimes, I've taught all my girls the game. Like, listen, this is what little boys do. This is what guys do. This is what they're going to tell you. But I've told you 50 million times how beautiful you are, and how great and how wonderful you are. So if you want to come and game with my kids, you have to come with a different game than that, folks. They never heard they're beautiful their whole life. They've been spoiled their whole life. So you got to step up. They're used to the main man in their life taking care of them. And that's what I wanted them to see.
I'm glad you brought up the whole friend and not being a friend with the kids. And that goes for even when you have a healthy marriage. It's not just a divorce thing, but it becomes even more integral when it's a divorce.
Yeah.
I will never forget having that, it wasn't even a conversation, more of a statement. I think Hannah was maybe 8. Davis was, I guess, about 5. And then just recently with Dylan and Desiree, I said the same thing to them. And I looked them in the face and I said, I'm not your friend. I'm your father. Or I'm going to treat you and love you like I'm your father. I'm not going to do anything differently. I said, but like you said, there's nothing friendly about this arrangement, this relationship. It's I am entrusted to lead you to be a functioning, healthy adult in society. If I'm your friend, talking to you like one of your friends, you're not going to respect me.
Exactly.
And that's something that you've got to draw that line immediately, and you have to stand on that line. And it's one of those things, you have to deliver that line. I'm your friend. I'm not your friend. I'm your father. And you look at their faces, and they're like, well, why aren't you my friend? Because if somebody tells you when you're little they're not your friend, you feel rejected by that. You're like, why won't you be my friend? That's something really hard for a child to understand. And I think as they get older, they start, oh, that's what he talked about. Yeah, that's what he meant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Trina just said something interesting, too. She said, it's no different when you're in the house with low parents. It's in their nature to play adults. So they always try to play. That'll get you in big trouble in my household. But usually, the dad will say, go ask your mom. What your mom say? That's usually
like playing tennis.
That's our answer for everything. But if it's like, when they know in my house, when they know it's serious, like, Dad, can I go to the dance? Like, no. Why are we going to a dance? My mom's like, yeah, you need to go to the dance. So it's a difference between when you ask both parents, or she tell you go ask your dad, and I say no, and then the mom comes and says, hey, you really need to let her go to the dance. So the thing is, I don't negotiate with kids. But the United States said, I don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
I don't negotiate with kids, but I will negotiate with your mom. So if your mom can convince me that it's a good reason for you to go, I can buy into that. Tamika has another interesting question. It says, what is your thoughts on children who have not healed from divorce? How can parents help work through it? And I can say on this that it's going to take both parties to work through it.
Yes.
If your kids are not healing, me as a parent, I'm hurt if my kid is hurt. If my child is not succeeding because of something I've done or some things that we've done together through like in this divorce, then I think that needs to be a scenario where both parents get involved. A lot of times we put a lot on that other parent. We just say divorce, that's it, kids, get over it, and that's not the case. And that's kind of how I dealt with the situation. I allowed myself to be the bad guy in that situation just for the sake of my children. But if the kids are not healing and not moving on from divorce, I really feel like both parents need to get involved, whether it be counselors, whether they're sitting down, we can spend more time together. Because a lot of kids don't want to spend time with you after there is a divorce. They feel like you let the family down or it's your fault. So we have those scenarios, but both parents got to get on board and make that happen.
There's something I want to bring up that you talked about earlier, and getting to know the person before you enter that marriage or that relationship, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. There's something to be said for child psychology. So those questions that you need to ask beforehand is like, okay, so how was your childhood?
Yes.
And and then so you want to pick their brain and say, basically, are you able to handle what we're getting ready to do?
Oh yeah.
Do you know who you are as a person? Do you have goals? Yeah. How are your parents? Are they still together? Yeah. If they're divorced, how are they? Mm-hmm. Now, I can say that I knew the answers to all of those, mm-hmm. but I was naive enough and dumb enough that I moved forward anyway. So a lot of people could say, dude, you got what you deserve. You got what was coming to you because, and they wouldn't be wrong. They really wouldn't be wrong.
That's hard. I mean, like I said, it has to be asked. And a lot of people don't ask that. They'll kind of skip over that part when their relationships are. When a person tells me I don't have a relationship with my father, especially if I'm about to date her, okay, what happened? And, or she might have a great stepfather in her life. That's a different scenario. I mean, a lot of times, let's face it, a lot of parents are just, not a lot, but some parents are just not good parents. And along comes these step parents who are wonderful and they can guide us to another level, and those be the scenarios. But if there was no man there, it kind of makes you kind of iffy about the situation.
Yeah.
I know when women used to date me, when I say, hey, I don't have a relationship with my mom, that should have been a turn off right there. And it wasn't anything that I did at that particular time, but it was what me and my mom went through. That I still love my mom to this day, today. But it's just, you have to look at those things because you can start to see how this person is going to view the world, how this person views relationships, how this person views marriage. My mom and dad never got married. I mean, they were 18 and 19 years old when they had me. So they never got married. And they was in a crazy relationship at that particular time. So for me, I didn't see, I wasn't in a household where somebody was married. So I had to figure marriage out on my own.
Well, and when you talked about the answer that you gave when you said you didn't have a relationship with your mom, you go back to kind of what we said in last week's show, how people have lost their moral compass. Oh, yeah. And again, before I even go any further, I'm not judging anybody, trust me. Mm-hmm. It just goes back to, I think we're in a society now where so many people are looking for love. They're looking for reassurance. Our society is hurting more than it ever has. We're treating people worse than we ever have. Yep. We are arguing and fighting about ridiculous things. Mm-hmm. So people want a connection, and they're almost willing to do anything to get that connection. So they leave out those questions. If you say, well, I don't have a relationship with somebody or my mom or dad, and they'll just let it go, when maybe previously in generations that would have been something to say, oh, well, we can't go any further. I think that just goes to show how weak and very vulnerable we are. Then it brings up another question here. When and how do you decide to introduce people to your kids after a divorce?
That question.
Yeah.
Listen,
Stutter.
some people introduce their kids immediately. But the thing is, you can't introduce all these people into your kids' life. Because you got to think, especially if you got a teenage boy, and he sees different guys coming in and out of mom's house, he's going to look at it different. Or vice versa, you got a teenage daughter, she sees all those different things. I think it has to be months down the line. I would say somewhere between 2 to 4.
You're just picking a number, man.
I would really say about 6 months. I mean, you have to know that if this is a fly-by-night relationship, of course you cannot introduce your kids to that. But if it's a relationship, you know that it's going somewhere, there has to be definitely a meeting of the minds, like where she has to meet your, or he has to meet your kids, because you don't want nobody around that's going to abuse your kids or your kids. So you have to set up those perimeters to protect your children. And just know that when you introduce your kids, guys, to the other woman, or to the new woman, she look better than mama, you're going to give them child support. I'm just saying.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Or ladies, if your new guy looks better than the old guy, like your ex-husband, there's going to be some problems going on. But I mean,
You're right.
It's horrible.
You're right.
But listen,
you're cracking yourself up. Look at you. She followed up that question with, what if your kids don't like the new person?
Oh man.
And then you're in. Well, I mean, you have to go with your kids on that one. I think you have to side with your kids on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Kids have a good sense about things, and I think that goes hand in hand with how long do you wait to introduce someone. I think you should have a general sense at that point. Now, it doesn't mean it happens.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that, we're still very human and we miss on a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
We swing and miss on things all the time. And relationships are probably in the top 2 of things that we get wrong the first time. But I don't know if that helps answer that. But I guess I think you need to side with your kids on that. If your son or daughter are both say, we are just not digging this dude.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk with them. Get why.
Yeah, but think about what's the movie with Ice Cube when he was taking the kids across.
Oh, are we there yet?
Yeah, you think about it, those kids are just after him because they still like their father. They want mom.
Well, they definitely had an agenda. But that was a movie. It was very good, very entertaining movie. Gosh, I've seen that like probably 15 times.
Yeah. Tasha brought up some great points too. I want to touch on. She said, "True, my stepfather was everything to me and my children. We were mourning him this day. We learned so much from him." She also said that one thing she disagreed. We need your input if one day we'll be in each other's company about dating, introducing your kids, and all of those different things. So this is making a great dialogue. I'm learning a lot about the people I follow. I think a lot of y'all think like me, which is pretty cool.
It's like an aha moment. I didn't like my stepfather.
Ah, okay.
He's like, ooh, it gets more interesting. And I'm not somebody, I don't seek out conflict.
Yeah.
I'm not a physically aggressive person, but he came into my life when I was 9. And I did the whole, well, in my mind, I never said it to him, but in my mind, I was always comparing him to my dad.
Oh, yeah.
Always.
Oh, yeah.
He was completely opposite in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very combative with me, always trying to, I guess he felt it was a competition for attention with my mom. He felt he was competing with me from day one.
Yeah.
And I know that she told him, well, if it comes down to you and my son, it's going to be my son.
Mm-hmm.
Which further probably planted seeds of competition in his mind.
Yeah.
I know why she said it. I don't blame her for saying it. I think you should always side with your kids when it comes down to the new person. In that situation, I do remember there was a time where I was in my room, minding my own business, doing some college work. Yes, I stayed at home. Probably too long, yes. I'm in there with my feet up on my bed. I'm studying. I got my books there. I'm on the phone with a girlfriend at the time, my cordless phone. That was back in the day where you're sharing a phone line, right? There was no cell phone. Cordless phone.
I heard about that.
No. And he's coming in saying, I need to get on the phone. It was never, hey, could you please get off the phone? It was always very abrasive at that point.
Yeah.
And that was something that I've thought about that because I think he passed probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And to this day, I feel numb. It was, I guess, indifferent.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that goes, wow, Dave, that's cold. You know, that you don't even feel anything. But it goes back to, I was never treated I was a good kid. Even as I got older, like I said, I was in my room doing college work. I was paying my own way, working a job. I thought I was a great dude. I'm like, man, I'm not out in the streets.
Yeah.
I'm not begging anybody to pay my school for me. Yeah. I'm not getting a free ride. I'm paying my bills, and you're still coming in here and you're giving me crap.
Yeah.
There's that aspect that a lot of kids do deal with in mixed families and remarriages, and I do feel bad for those kids.
Yeah.
Because it is a common story.
Yeah, it is. I mean, my mom never married my sister's dad. Thank God. But he was not a good person. He was a good person to my mom. And he wasn't the best father figure for me. I mean, you just can't, like I said, you just can't beat a woman down and constantly drive her in the mud and expect to be able to teach me how to be a man. I wanted nothing in this world to do with him. I refused to let him teach me anything. He was a mathematician. I refused to let him teach me math. I refused to let him teach me how to read and write. I taught myself how to read and write.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did. I taught, like I told you, I held the pencil blade the wrong way. I had my pencil like this. So
show me that.
I held my pencil like this. And that's how I taught myself how to write. And then once I started in 3rd grade and I'm looking at everybody else write, I started holding my pen like this. It took me a year to be able to start writing like that because I had taught myself. I refused to let him teach me anything.
Wow.
And my hate for him was so real, but it was something that I had to let go of in order to become the man that I'm supposed to be. So a lot of time I've learned from men from bad examples on how to be a father. I learned from bad coaches how to be a good coach.
Yeah.
I take those experiences that I get, especially the bad ones, and I'm like, okay, I would never do this. And so I'm thankful for a lot of the things that I've been through. It has helped me become the man that I'm supposed to be. So watching a lot of bad fathers taught me how to be a father. It taught me how to be a better father.
Isn't that how we learn a lot of things, though? You do the opposite of what you see. And again, that goes back to the promise I made to Dave as a child. Let me rephrase. I didn't see anything negative from my parents. Therefore, when my dad sat down in his chair, and right after a baseball game, and he said, son, I'm going to be leaving. So I had no clue. It was the complete antithesis of what I went through as an adult. Not only did I not fulfill my promise to myself, but the kids saw way too much.
Yeah.
Comparable to what you said. They heard and saw too much, whereas I saw and heard nothing. So it's almost like, what's worse? It's like losing a game by 55 or losing by 2.
Yeah.
Which one hurts the worst? I'd almost say they're equal because it's like you kind of want a little bit of a warning before you get hit in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of coming out of nowhere with a roundhouse and you're like, whoa, I thought y'all were cool.
Yeah.
I never heard you guys argue. I never heard you do anything but be peaceful or saw anything but peace, and you're telling me you're leaving? So that's another part of the depth of those pieces that we've been talking about. Like, the pieces seem to be indefinite.
Yeah.
And you have a name for every one of those pieces.
Yeah.
And they're in the hundreds, they could be in the thousands, because all of our psyches are different. It's like our fingerprints.
I don't think mine caught my kid off guard. Me and their mom used to argue like cats and dogs. And my grandmother always told me, she would just scold me like, "What are y'all yelling in front of those kids for? You're gonna make them babies scared. What's wrong with you? And that's not right to do." And she would, and I'm not gonna get in your business, but you can't do that. And you look back on it, it was just a toxic situation for my family. If I'm screaming at her, she's screaming at me. You know, the kids were jumpy when they went to sleep. We have to look at all of those things. And like I said, when you have kids, it changes everything. A lot of people think because they have kids that they're supposed to stay, they're going to stay in relationships.
Right.
That's not the case. A lot of people think just because we're together and everything seems right and that my spouse is happy, that's not the case. You really got to ask them what their well-being is. How do they feel? Don't be scared to ask those things in your relationship. If you're in a relationship with somebody, in your mind, everything might be hunky-dory. Just everything is great, but in their mind, they might be tore up. They might be, displeased with the job, displeased with how we're raising the kids, financial situations. People just don't talk enough. They divorce fast. And then a lot of people are caught off guard with divorce papers. They're like, "Hey, where did this come from? I didn't see this coming. This blindsided me." And then they always think it's somebody else. That's not the case sometimes. You got to think, a lot of people that are getting divorced have been divorced in their head for years.
Well, yeah, and I think if we had our collective kids sitting here right now, and they're old enough to hear it, I would say, don't be a victim of what you saw. Don't be a victim of your environment, and just think that you're going to perpetuate divorce because you were a part of it. And again, that goes back to the point we brought up earlier: is that when you do, if you do, find a healthy relationship post-divorce, I think one of your top 2 or 3 missions should be, aside from making sure that you're happy this time, to show your kids that real love can happen, to show that real relationship building and communication and function, not dysfunction, but function can actually happen. Because obviously dysfunction, when you're in that spot, is all your kids know at that point. They see chaos. They may have heard yelling and screaming, maybe physical violence, maybe all of the above, gossiping about the other parent. But you need to show them. And you've got to make that a priority and say, happiness is possible. You don't have to end up like me. And even in saying that, yes, I failed, but I got back up, and I'm better now.
I have to commend the older people, as they say, the older saints. Back in the day, they just stayed together. There wasn't no leaving.
I know.
They just worked it out and they made it happen. I know situations where guys have had 2, 3 outside kids and they're still together. But now, if he looks at a woman too long on TV, they're divorcing and they're breaking up. So I have to commend older people. I'm part of the older people now.
You're younger than me, man. Whatever.
That stayed together, worked it out. I mean, 50, 60, 70 years of marriage. And now we see people been married for 20 years, divorcing, or 25, 30 years are getting divorced right now. And I'm like, man, you are like in the last days of your life when you're supposed to sit down and be able to have a conversation with somebody and hold their hand. You're not as good as you used to be, and you'll be able to conversate. But those things are not happening now. I really believe people look at the internet, they look at the Joneses, they look at everybody else's relationship, and that's what they want, and that's what they go after. And we just are in those days now where the internet tells everything or shows everything, and I could be the most gangsterous person on Facebook, but see me in person, I'm a coward.
Well, you bring up a good point too about the older school.
That's not true though. Just like I know that part.
You got street cred, man. Don't worry. The nuclear family. Have you heard that term?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That never existed.
Yeah.
That was a myth. The whole Leave It to Beaver, the Andy Griffith show. I'm not trying to kill anybody's dreams of the older generation, but that stuff, the perfect family, a father knows best, maybe some of you out there had that. If you did, congratulations, you're very blessed. That is not common in America. That's not common at all. In fact, it's extremely uncommon and it's very rare. But yeah, the term the nuclear family, where the mom and dad stayed together through thick and thin, through everything, through cheating, through domestic violence, through all of the above, does that make it healthy? I mean, does it make it healthy that they stay together? I mean, so I know who you're commending. You're saying the people that have been in love this entire time.
Oh yeah.
You're talking about the people that have had each other's backs through thick and thin and treated each other with respect and with kindness.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the couple that stays together for the kids.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing that, you're not only damaging yourself permanently, you're damaging your kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because you say, well, I'm staying for the kids. Okay. So then your kids are going to say, I knew my parents were upset.
Mm-hmm.
I even knew that they were staying for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not healthy. I can't do that in my life.
Yeah, that's not healthy. I mean, a lot of people do that. A lot of people genuinely love their kids. I tell a lot of people all the time, you are a selfish individual until you have kids. It's life changing.
Absolutely.
You think about them long before you think about yourself. And I've known people, I've done it at times myself, where you stay in a relationship because of the kids. There's like nothing more important than them. And so you stay. You forget about your own happiness, your own self-worth, and you just stay because you know if you leave this person, your child might be damaged, or you feel it would really hurt your child. So I hate it for those people who are not out here living their best life because they are living for their kids, and they're, in the scenario that I was in, I told my kids, their mom she's made them her relationship. So my daughters, from my first day, their mom is dating them basically because there's nothing else other than the kids. That's it. That's all it is. And we are not being our best self if that's all that we're doing, because our kids are going to grow up, get older, have their own families, have their own lives, and they're going to be like, all right, Daddy, I'm out. And I told my daughters, I said, don't put me in a nursing home. I want to sleep on y'all couch.
Yeah, you've said that a few times.
I want to be an aggravating parent. So, what I'm just saying, I wouldn't I wouldn't dare get in their way of their lives. I want them to live their life because I live mine. So, but a lot of people are definitely dating their kids.
Gosh, we've covered a lot, dude.
We definitely
have covered a ton of stuff. I'd like to say I hope we've done a pretty good job of answering everybody's questions today. This has been one of the top 2 most active shows that we've had. So this one and the domestic violence show that we did, this has been great.
Oh yeah.
I know we've missed a ton of things. I know we're missing a ton of things.
Yeah, we might have to come back and redo this show, do another show similar to it. Y'all just let us know what y'all want to talk about.
Yeah, I would like to ask for more feedback, for real. We're far from doing the best job that we can. We always want to get better. That's just how we are. Mm-hmm. We are always open every single week. Shoot, as soon as we go off the air, we're already thinking about the next week and what are we going to do. Yeah. This is your show. We've said that from the beginning. Part of the mission statement for us is to be here for everybody out there. There are so many things that are on your mind right now as we speak that you're hoping somebody would talk about. Please let us know what that would be.
Oh yeah.
Ask us, run it by us, text us if you can. Message us on we have 98 people that are in our fans of the J.O.B. podcast page now. We're 2 away from 100. Mm-hmm. So please share us what we do out there. Get more people involved. The more people we get involved, man, the conversations we can have,
the better the
are endless.
The better the conversations.
They're endless.
And think about it. We are on YouTube. Find our YouTube channel, J.O.B. Podcast. You'll see a lot of links on our page coming up. Make sure you share it. Tell all your friends to subscribe, like it. We are trying to grow and make this something huge. We're on all music formats. Right?
We're everywhere.
We're on iTunes, iHeartRadio,
Stitcher, Pandora.
We are on Pandora right now. Who would have thought? So definitely find our show. If you guys, this is your first time tuning in, we have 10 other shows that you can look at. And if you guys have any suggestions on things you want to talk about, definitely let us know. I guarantee you we'll get it in because a lot of y'all make some great topics. I'm not going to be able to pick out everything all the time. And y'all can say this show was from my daughter Taji because she let her daddy know how she felt, and that's just a relationship that we have. We can talk about it.
Oh, and that's a wonderful thing that she contributed to this, and it also helped you guys at the same time.
See, Tasha already gave us one. Talk about new love and prospects.
Cool.
Interesting.
New love and prospects. Ask her to define that, though.
Yeah, give us, Tasha, if you can inbox me and give me more information on exactly what you want to talk about. We can definitely talk about getting those new relationships.
Oh, dating in the modern age of swiping right.
Yeah, definitely dating in the modern age.
I know a little bit about that. That's how me and Debbie met.
And then you have a lot of women that say, they're single like forever. And guys can hop out of a relationship and be dating somebody else like months down the line and they're still single. And I just say, listen, you gotta make yourself available. You definitely gotta make yourself available. You can't be walking out with a canoe on top of your head or your wig crooked.
And I think part of being available is making yourself vulnerable too.
Something like
that. Canoe.
I don't know, man. It just sounded funny.
It's like Eddie Murphy just making something up.
You can't just look. You gotta walk out the house wife ready, as I would say.
Ooh.
You gotta be wife ready when you walk.
That scares a lot of guys.
The conversations, you gotta be wife ready. A lot of guys are not scared, especially at our age. If you know what you want, you want to be in a relationship, go for it. But I'm telling you, the fun girl, you just fun for a second. But if you want to be wife, you got to walk out the door as a wife every day. I mean, I served under a great pastor one time, and he told me he was a virgin until he got married. He was 20-some years old. He said he would come home every day from work and spray perfume and say, "Honey, I'm home." And he said he spoke his wife into existence, but God had to bring him the right wife. What? So, yeah, it was an amazing story.
You just drove by that. I'm like, wait a minute. Like a Kevin Hart. Like, wait a minute. So, okay. So you said he'd come into the house and he'd spray perfume to nobody that was there.
Nobody was there. It was just him in his one-bedroom apartment. He was lonely, and he wanted to be married, but he just didn't want to date anyone. He wanted a wife. So he spoke it into existence. So he would come home, spray perfume, and say, "Honey, I'm home." And he prayed for it, and eventually he got with First Lady, and they've been together.
That is intense.
He's a wonderful, wonderful man. I used to love syrup on him. I miss my old set free days. But you gotta believe that. So I'm telling you, when you walk out the door, you gotta be wife ready. You gotta be wife material at all times. Your conversation, your walk, your talk, everything has got to be on point. And somebody's gonna find you.
And to that point, before we wrap up, just as much as you should be wife or husband ready, I guess, to be fair, if you have somebody right now, give them your best every single day. Exactly. Wake up every single day and go to sleep every night knowing, or if you didn't, what are you going to do the next day to make it up to them? Because other than that, what are you doing?
That's got to be our next show, Coach. It's got to be this.
Did we just find it?
Being wife ready or being husband ready. We got to do that.
Giving 100 all the time.
But I tell people all the time, though, and I learned from one of my good friends, he had got into a real bad car wreck in high school. So he got a huge lump sum of money. Yeah. Nobody knew about it, but like me and a few other people. Huge. He was set for the rest of his life. And he was dating this one girl, and he was about to marry her. He wanted to ask her to marry her, but he was going to tell her about all the money and stuff that he already had. Mm-hmm. His dad said the most powerful thing in the world that you could ever say to me: you never make a woman your wife before she's your wife. It's like you never make a man your husband before he's your husband. You can't say everything, because if I come up and say, "I got a ton of money," well, I'm going to marry him because he got a ton of money. Yeah. You can't make a person your spouse before they're your spouse. Interesting. Yeah. That's pretty heavy. That's really heavy. Okay. So I think we found our next show, guys. Wow. Look at you, Tasha. Sometimes we just trip into things by accident. I got a bunch of hearts from that from Tasha. I think we're in the right place, man. Cool. Good job. Cool. Well, once again, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thank you for supporting this show, the podcast. It keeps getting bigger and better. I know that it helps us individually. I think we have something special, and that is you all doing that. Oh, yeah. It's not about us. And again, please keep supporting us out there. Like and share the YouTube.
It takes a while to grow on that. But again, the beauty of a podcast is you can listen to us anytime, anywhere that you want to. You don't have to catch the Facebook Live thing. We do that just because it's current.
Yeah.
You happen to be sitting around and you're not into that football game that's on right now.
Yeah.
You can tune in. A lot of you have done that today.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your support. This has been episode 11. And for Ty Steele, I'm Dave Ford. Everybody be blessed out there. This has been the J.O.B. podcast. Peace and God bless.